Hello.
It's 7 o'clock.
So tonight we continue with the Bhagavad Gita and our friend Swami Rama. We are going through chapter 13, and here we are, which this chapter is on the field and the field knower. The conscious spirit, Purusha, only dwelling within Prakriti, perceives the Prakriti-bound gunas. The cause of his birth in the good and bad bodies is his connection with the gunas, the good old gunas. Hello, Terra, aka Violet. Close observer, consenter, bearer, and experiencer is the great sovereign. The supreme spirit in this body is also called the supreme self, Paramatman. Hello, Jean. And hi, Scott. So here we all are. Swami Rama explains, in these two verses, the student is asked to be a witness, exactly as one's real self is a witness. Hello, Nilesh. Good evening. Let me put me out of the way here a little bit. When the student practices meditation and withdraws the senses from the external world, his mind is not distracted and disturbed by the dissipation of the senses. But even at that stage, he has to encounter the flow rushing from the unconscious, which is the reservoir of all memories, impressions, samskaras, and merits and demerits of one's current and previous lives. How can one deal with such thoughts when they present themselves during meditation? If the meditator learns to observe his thoughts and all that comes from the unconscious, symbols, ideas, fancies, and fantasies, and does not become involved or identify himself with them, he can remain a witness. Without attaining that state, meditation is incomplete. The one who dwells in the heart of the cosmos is the same one who dwells in the body. In the individual body, he is the master, and he is the same master and knower of the universe. Just as one and the same space is in the cup, in the room, and the outside, the all-pervading self is everywhere. Isn't that a beautiful metaphor about space? It's so simple. Every one of us can understand that metaphor. There appears to be space in this room, but if you take away the walls, the space is just the space over this empty ground. So the space itself is really unaffected by all the walls and the containers that we create. When the student is firmly established in the knowledge that the inner dweller, Atman, the Supreme Self, resides in the body and also knows the external, mundane, and temporal world well, then whatever actions he performs do not create bondage for him. The aspirant who knows the pure self, its manifestation and its qualities, and then learns to live in the world, is free from the necessity of rebirth. Perfect timing. It's free, huh, Roseanne? Hi, Ro. And a little bit more from Krishna. He who knows the conscious principle Purusha, and there is a couple frees. There's a free from Roseanne and a free from Teria. Lots of frees. Let's hear it for the frees. He who knows the conscious spirit Purusha as well as the primordial nature Prakriti, together with the attributes gunas, even though operating in every way, he is not bound again. Some see the self by the self within the self through meditation, others by Sankhya or by yoga, and yet others by the yoga of action. Others, not knowing this, worship upon hearing from others. They too, intent upon learning from others, yet certainly conquer death. Sri Krishna distinguishes between four paths and says self-realization can be attained by each of those paths. On one path, the aspirant practices the yoga of meditation to attain samadhi. In that path, the journey from the gross self to the subtlemost self, capital S self, is trodden systematically by the Raja Yogis and Dhyana Yogis. Those yogis practice Ashtanga Yoga, not the modern Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. And of course, some of us practice all of these as one blended method. Yama consists of 5 practices that help one relate to others with a sense of oneness. And Niyama is comprised of 5 practices that lead to self-purification. Asana helps one to prepare the body for meditation through physical postures. Through pranayama, one regulates the lungs, breath, and vital energy. Thus, one prepares himself through his actions, postures, and breath to enable him to sit for meditation without being distracted by such things as the remembrance of deeds improperly performed, discomfort of the body, or irregular breathing. None of those distractions. And there is Wouter up in the middle of the night. Hi, Wouter. The aspirant next learns how to withdraw his senses, pratyahara, and then to concentrate his mind, dharana. Prolonged one-pointed concentration leads to meditation, dhyana, and prolonged steady meditation leads to samadhi. Other aspirants tread the path of knowledge. They study the scriptures attentively and contemplate on the teachings of the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Bhagavad Gita. When their contemplation is strengthened by pure reason, their buddhi becomes discriminative and they understand the difference between the pure self and the mere self. That is the path of knowledge which finally leads the aspirant to self-realization. And some do meditation and contemplation, not one or the other. There is another group of aspirants who attain spiritual heights by performing their duties and dedicating all the fruits of their actions. They understand the nature of Prakriti and its gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They perform their actions without any attachment and thus reach the highest level of consciousness. The fourth group of aspirants is not learned. They depend on the teachings imparted to them by the sages, and they strictly follow that knowledge with full faith and devotion. Their path is the path of devotion and faith, and it is faith that leads them across the mires of delusion. And once again, some blend all of these things, though having a predominance probably in one. Having a pure heart and unflinching faith, they reach the shore of life. Various are the paths followed by the many aspirants for attaining spiritual knowledge. All those who make sincere efforts reach the summit. There you go. So follow one or all. Krishna comes back. So long as any entities, moving or unmoving, are born, know that to be through the union of the field and the field knower. O bull among bodies. Remember there that the field knower is the Purusha, is the pure consciousness, and the field is all of the manifestations of Prakriti. Dwelling alike in all beings, the supreme sovereign, not perishing among the perishing things, he who sees him, he truly sees. Swami Rama explains, teaching the yoga of equanimity, Sri Krishna says to Arjuna that whatever we find in the world, animate and inanimate, is the creation of the self, Purusha, and its power of manifestation or Prakriti. The self is the knower, the supreme reality, and Prakriti is its field, the manifestation that we see in various names and forms all over the universe, all over, everywhere. All that comes into existence, whether sentient or insentient, arises from the union of Purusha and Prakriti. Even arising from that is one Raj. Hi, Raj. We have grown a Raj. These two fundamental principles are the principles of the one absolute without a second. Purusha controls Prakriti as the body is controlled by its knower. This very Purusha is called Atman. Atman dwells equally everywhere in all things and beings of the universe. The aspirant who has the profound knowledge of the unchanging, everlasting, and eternal knows the truth. He sees truth everywhere and in everything. He remains undisturbed, for he has attained the state of equanimity. Coming back to Krishna says, seeing the Lord dwelling in everyone equally, one does not violate the self by the self. Thereby he reaches the supreme state. Wonderful practice to do, isn't it? Attempting to see consciousness in everyone equally. All living beings and objects of the world appear to be distinct from one another, but in reality they are the modifications of one and the same truth. Distinctions in name, form, and size are only apparent and not permanent. There are countless ripples, waves, and bubbles in the ocean, but they are one and the same water. As there are innumerable rays of sunlight coming from a single source, the aspirant knows that the different modes of the objects of the universe arise from one and the same Brahman. Pretty cool, huh? And then Krishna says, he alone who sees the self as not a doer, and who sees that all acts are performed by Prakriti alone in every way. I grew a Joe back here. I thought I was hearing something. Then I wondered if I was imagining things. I thought, no, there's a real Joe behind me. Swami Rama explains, the wise person knows that Atman is not the doer, that all actions are carried out by Prakriti. It is the material nature that is responsible for all the actions and happenings going on in the universe and in the individual. Atman remains the witness. One who has attained this knowledge has realized the self. As a somewhat fair, I think, analogy, metaphor, the electricity in one sense operates my computer, but it's not the electricity as such that is operating these programs. It's the programs itself, and it's the matter and the hard drive and the chips and all of that stuff in there that's doing all this. obviously the electricity is needed. So similarly, it is with the self, the Purusha and the Prakriti. When he observes the separate being of all beings, united in one, and all expansion from the very same, then he becomes Brahman. Being devoid of attributes, this supreme self, Paramatman, though dwelling in the body, O son of Kunti, neither acts nor is tainted by action. Just as the all-pervading sky is not tainted in its subtleness, similarly, this Atman dwelling everywhere in the body is not smeared. Just as the single sun illuminates this entire world, so the field owner illuminates the entire field, O descendant of Bharata. Swami Rama explains the highest self is the self of all, without any beginning or end, unborn and timeless. Therefore, it is eternal. A well-known prayer of the Upanishads, or mantras, says that the absolute truth is full. And if the full is taken from the full, that fullness is not diminished. If something is added to it, it still remains the same. Subtraction and addition do not create any change, for it is always full. Or you can think of the word infinite. Infinity plus infinity is infinity. Infinity minus infinity is infinity. Whatever you do to add or subtract to infinity, you still have infinity. Om Purnamidam Purnamidam Purna Purna Munachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Some of you know that mantra, I know. The three qualities of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are not in the self, for the self is beyond qualities and attributes. It is untainted by the manifestation of illusory forms that appear to be in conflict, and in many cases to suffer. It is not tainted by the defects or blemishes of the apparent reality. All actions are performed by the body. The self remains aloof and unaffected, free from all stains and impurities. Again, here is the Purusha and the Prakriti. Those who thus know with the eye of knowledge the difference between the field and the field knower, as well as the release from the primordial nature of Prakriti, which is the origin of elements, they reach the transcendent. Excuse me. Human eyes can only see so far, says Swami Rama. They have limited capacity and are bound by a limited horizon. There you go. Raz says it. Free. To be free. Human eyes can only see so far. They have limited capacity and are bound by a limited horizon. But those who have attained intuitive knowledge have divine insight and can fathom all the levels of consciousness within and without. And you and I can even use that simple sentence as a piece of sadhana, as a contemplation. We literally can go out and see a limited horizon. We can go out and look at nature. We can look at a mountain and notice that we cannot see over the mountain. We can go to the ocean and we can see the horizon out on the ocean. But yet with our intelligence, we can be aware that in fact there is an ocean beyond. There is something beyond the mountains. And so we can do that as a contemplation and be in alignment with this idea here. Such wise ones do not suffer from pride, egotism, or self-conceit, for their vision is not hindered by the limitations of the senses and the mind. The knowledge that flows through the ordinary mind is not pure and profound, but the knowledge that is received through divine or yogic sight is perfect. One should remember that such knowledge is not received bit by bit, but is received with all its profundity and fullness. That knowledge flows from its timeless and infinite source. It is called intuitive knowledge. Pure, unalloyed knowledge of the infinite alone liberates the aspirant from the cruel clutches of Prakriti. Such an aspirant is detached and performs his duties selflessly. He remains in boundless joy, always full of delight. We human beings are the children of eternity, infinite happiness and joy, and each of us can experience this true nature of ours. Here ends the 13th chapter, in which the knowledge of the self and the body, the universe and its knower, the Supreme Self, is described. The field and the field knower. Now, I tell you what here, I have queued up the next chapter here, but I am feeling the inclination. I just so love this chapter on the field and field knower that it leaves such a rich contemplation. And I'm thinking now that we'll end here and come back and start the next chapter. Here's the cliffhanger, the profound knowledge of the three gunas. So once we go through this chapter that we just did on the field and the field knower, now in our journey of the 18 days of teaching with the Yogi Krishna, now finally we are ready to actually dive deep into the nature of the three gunas. Is that okay with everybody? I hope it is. This is the cliffhanger, the profound nature of the three gunas. Again, I shall teach you the transcendent knowledge, the highest of sciences, knowing which all meditators have gone from here to supreme adepthood. Next time we will all go to supreme adepthood, huh? How's that sound? Is that a pretty good deal? Is that fair? To be continued, huh?
Do we get a diploma or something?
We'll get a diploma. You betcha. You want a diploma, Joe, you can have a diploma. The continuation of the Bhagavad Gita with our friend Swami Rama, said respectfully, of course. So, okay. Jean says it's okay. Roseanne says it's okay. So we'll pause there now. Now the challenge, Roseanne, is to get me to push the button here. I know it's a little early.
Push the button.
Push the button. Now I got Joe sitting behind me saying push the button. Can you hear him over there? Push the button. But see, if I push the button, then it's going to end. It's all going to be end. But it's a little bit like that experiment of looking at the horizon. We know that there's something beyond the horizon. We know that I'm going to push the end button, but it's not going to truly end, is it? It's all to be continued, right? And so anyway, have a nice meditation, okay? And remember, find what you're looking for in the silence after the Om. There's the Om, and there's what we're looking for. There's the self. Okay? See, there it is, Joe.
I've seen it before.
Yeah, he's seen it before, but that's just the card. You know, don't fall in love with the card. The card's just a tool. There, take that card, go away. Silence after the Om, okay? Om Tat Sat. Bye-bye, all. See you next time. Thanks for visiting and playing.